Art Vance gripped the leather-wrapped steering wheel of his custom Ford F-150, the tires humming softly against the freshly plowed asphalt leading into Aspen, Colorado. The setting sun cast long, blue shadows across the towering peaks, turning the crisp December air a theatrical shade of magenta beautiful. Expensive backdrop that felt painfully ironic. Art wasn't here for the powder or the prestige. He was here for a detonation. One he'd rigged himself. The dashboard clock read for PM, New Year's Eve. He'd driven 24 hours straight from his isolated compound outside Santa Fe, the massive payload of his carefully selected gifts, and a trunk full of professional-grade special effects gear riding silently behind him. His destination was the residences at Snowmass Creek, a sprawling, exclusive enclave of glass and stone where his daughter, Chloe Sterling, and her husband, Julian, occupied a penthouse unit worth more than the GDP of a small country. Art had meticulously planned this arrival for two reasons. One, the surprise gift drop he'd been excitedly assembling for weeks, and two, the timing, deliberately coinciding with the annual Sterling Winter Gala, a televised charity event that the couple, particularly Julian, used as a platform for their bespoke luxury consulting brand. This event was the whole point. The memory of the text from last year, December 31st, 2024, still felt like a physical jab to the ribs. "Dad, I'm so sorry. Caught the worst flu spike to fever this morning. Julian and I had to cancel the gala and are flying home tomorrow. So bummed to miss our holiday." He'd believed her. He'd worried. Sending texts full of blandishments and homemade bone broth recipes. Convinced his only child was suffering alone, canceling their most important professional event to recuperate. He'd even canceled his own smaller, low-key gathering to be on standby. Then, 3 days later, the Instagram post went live. Chloe, radiant, flawlessly made up, not a hair out of place, clutching a diamond tennis bracelet, posing with a group of smiling socialites at a different, even more exclusive New Year's party in Miami. The caption, "Blessed to escape the flu and ring in 2024 with my favorite people." The lie had been smooth, unnecessary, and cruelly deliberate. It hadn't been a sudden change of plans. It had been a calculated exclusion. Art, a man who built his career on creating believable illusions, recognized true deception when he saw it. This year, there would be no flu. This year, the illusion would be his. He pulled the F-150 into the designated valet area, the truck looking aggressively utilitarian next to a row of polished black Escalades and Range Rovers. A young valet in a too-tight black suit hurried over. "Welcome, sir. Name for the manifest, Vance. Visiting the Sterlings. Penthouse for 102. Art's voice was dry, the vocal tone honed over decades, shouting directions over wind machines and pyro bursts on dusty sound stages. The valet paled slightly, recognizing the name or perhaps sensing the tension radiating off the 60-year-old man, whose face was a roadmap of sun damage and squint lines. "Ah, Mr. Vance, the Sterlings are hosting the gala. They are expecting guests through the main entrance momentarily." "I'm not a guest. I'm family," Art stated, grabbing to enormous, custom-built wood and aluminum cases from the back seat. One case was labeled personal, the other discreetly marked specialty. "Just need to drop these off." The valet wisely didn't argue. The elevator ride up was agonizingly silent, the mirrored walls reflecting a man who was no longer just the jolly, retired father, but the technician, the manipulator of atmosphere, the guy you hired when you needed a dramatic, unforgettable event. He was Art Vance, the stunt coordinator who had blown up 5 city blocks in a single take and made it look like an accident. He was ready for the scene change. He paused outside the solid mahogany door of 402. Classical music Vivaldi played. Too loud drifted from within, mixed with the high, chirping laughter of Aspen society. He took a deep, centering breath, a technique he learned before executing a difficult high fall. Control the descent, control the landing. He rang the bell. The door was opened by Chloe Sterling herself. She was stunning, a masterpiece of professional grooming, floor-length emerald gown, diamond earrings catching the light. Her blonde hair swept up in a tight, elegant twist. Her practiced society smile dissolved instantly, replaced by a look of sheer, unadulterated shock. "Dad, what are you?" Before she could finish, Julian Sterling appeared over her shoulder. A man built like a bespoke tailor's dream, sharp jaw, custom tuxedo, radiating an aura of polished, controlling entitlement. His smile, already strained from the pressures of hosting, vanished. "Arthur, what in God's name is this?" His voice was not welcoming, it was razor wire. "You are not expected. You are uninvited." Art felt the temperature of his blood rise. He shifted the heavy aluminum cases, planting his feet firmly on the Italian marble threshold. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart. I came to drop off your presents. Took me 2 weeks to machine these cases. Thought they looked suitably Aspen." He nudged the specialty case with his boot. Julian didn't even look at the gift. "I don't care about your trinkets. This is a broadcast event. We have the network here, sponsors arriving. The governor is due in 10 minutes. You are a liability. Get out of my penthouse, Arthur, or I will have security escort you." Chloe finally found her voice, a nervous, high-pitched whine that spoke volumes about her husband's control. "Dad, please, you should have called. You need to respect our boundaries." Boundaries. The word tasted like ash. Art looked past them. Into the living area. The place was teeming. Crystal flutes, ice sculptures, a string quartet, and a massive, custom-lit Christmas tree that probably cost more than his entire pension fund. A camera crew was setting up near the panoramic window overlooking the slopes. This wasn't a party. It was a broadcast production, and he was the unplanned, unscripted element. "I won't cause a scene," Art said, his voice dropping to a dangerous, soft growl, the tone he used when telling an actor they had 1 take to nail a difficult, high-stakes moment. "I just needed to see your faces. I needed to see your gala." Julian, mistaking the quiet for compliance, stepped forward. "Good, now get your trash and go." He reached for the heavy mahogany door. Slam. The sound was concussive, vibrating the expensive glass wine rack nearby. Art was left standing in the brightly lit, sterile hallway, his gifts to weeks of effort, of love, of $127,000 worth of misplaced faith still clutched in his hands. He didn't move for a long moment. He listened to the muffled, cheerful noise resume behind the door. He heard Chloe's forced, bright laugh carry faintly through the wood. "Oh, that was just the catering delivery, darling. They forgot the saffron reduction. Don't worry, everything's perfect." Another lie. Smooth and instant, already integrated into the script of their perfect life. Art turned his back to the door and walked deliberately back to the elevator. He didn't rush. He controlled his exit. He knew the camera was now pointing in the opposite direction, toward the set piece of the party. He was no longer the subject. He was the director planning the next, unscheduled take. Downstairs, he retrieved his F-150 and drove not toward the exit, but to the dimly lit parking garage under the adjacent building, where the service elevators and utility rooms were located. The guts of this spectacle. The specialty case, he realized, was not carrying gifts anymore. It was carrying the tools of his revenge. He killed the engine, the cab filling with the sharp, cold scent of pine. He pulled out his phone, Instagram. He scrolled back a year, looking at Chloe's Miami post. Blessed to escape the flu. The sickness wasn't physical, it was moral. He zoomed in on Julian in a photo, puffing his chest, controlling his wife, commanding the room. An image of last night's preparations flashed into his mind, the meticulous wiring of his old, trusted equipment. Time for an unscheduled effects sequence. His fingers moved over the keyboard of his custom-built travel laptop, the screen illuminating his weathered face. He wasn't just finding a Wi-Fi password. He was looking for the exposed spine of their smart home, the building management network. Within minutes, Art bypassed the simple, default security protocols of the Snowmass Creek Residence Management System. The password was tragically easy, skill luxury for O2, pathetic. The entire nervous system of their penthouse, from the automated lighting schedules to the climate control, was suddenly on his screen. He opened the digital blueprints of the building, instantly locating the electrical closet for the 400 series penthouses, the service ducting, and, most importantly, the fire suppression system. OB, Art typed quickly into an encrypted message app, contacting his old sound man. Now a semi-retired digital ghost. I need eyes on Snowmass Creek Utility Corridor Level 2. I need a clean remote access point to the lighting grid, preferably. DMX, this is a high priority. Personal favor, don't ask, you're in Aspen? OB's reply was instantaneous. I thought you were done with explosives. I am. This is less explosive, more atmospheric. Get me DMX access. I'll take care of the weather. Art worked quickly, muscle memory taking over. He found the list of digital contracts for the Sterling Gala. There it was, Aura Lighting Solutions, providing the sophisticated, color-controlled LED setup throughout the main ballroom. Art knew their proprietary software. He'd used it on a Marvel production 10 years ago. Access granted. Next, the guest list. Not a single member of Art's family or old friends. Just Tier 1 influencers, hedge fund managers, and bespoke luxury enthusiasts, an audience. Not a family. He closed the laptop with a soft click. The time for reconnaissance was over. He opened the specialty case. Inside, nestled in custom foam, was not a gift, but a compact, state-of-the-art molecular fog generator, modified to disperse a theatrical, low-density smoke, and a small, military-grade RF trigger unit. This, combined with his access to the building's infrastructure, was all he needed to turn their perfect gala into a poorly planned rehearsal. He took the emergency service elevator up one floor, moving silently through the empty corridor until he reached the utility access door, marked for 01404 HVAC electrical. He picked the lock in 30 seconds, another useful skill learned on location scouting in dodgy neighborhoods. He was in. The utility room smelled faintly of ozone and dust, the forgotten underbelly of pristine luxury. Art Vance, the retired Hollywood SFX coordinator, was now completely in his element. He quickly accessed the HVAC intake manifold for the penthouse level. This was the perfect distribution node for his atmospheric effect. He pulled the molecular fog generator from the specialty case and positioned it low to the floor, near the main vent opening. It was battery-powered and silent, designed to introduce non-toxic, visually dense theatrical smoke, not smoke for fire, but smoke for mood, or, in this case, for sheer panic. He pulled a small, custom-built circuit board from his pocket. This was the master control, his own proprietary sequencing unit. He patched 3 separate control wires, one to the high-voltage relay of the penthouse's main circuit breaker, the power source, one to the building's digital DMX lighting interface, the mood, and the third, most critical one, to the emergency override of the sprinkler system solenoid valve. He had to be precise. A botched amateur job would only get him arrested. A professional job, however, would be untraceable chaos. He pulled out his phone, already logged into the Snowmass Creek residence management system. He navigated to the penthouse for 100 to environment settings. The system showed the lights in the ballroom. The Sterling Winter Gala were set to a dazzling static white. The music was a live string quartet. The atmosphere was controlled, pristine. Art smiled, a cold, non-grandfatherly curve of the lips. Sequence check. Lights DMX. Kill the white. Introduce rapid, epileptic strobing, a visual effect he often used to simulate a failing spacecraft power core. Power breaker. Total power kill. Time 10 seconds after the strobing begins. Ensuring maximum disorientation. Atmosphere fog. Release the theatrical fog into the HVAC system immediately after the power cut. Weather sprinklers. The final devastating touch. Trigger the fire suppression system 30 seconds into the darkness, turning the panic into a flood. He closed his eyes for a moment, visualizing the sequence, the timing, the emotional impact on his audience. It was always about the audience. He activated the DMX override. Through the thin wall, he heard the shift in the music stop abruptly. The dazzling white lights of the ballroom, designed to flatter the expensive dresses and the expensive faces, began to flash violently. A rapid, disorienting strobe that turned the high society event into a horror show rave of screams. High-pitched and instant, cut through the wall. 10 seconds. Art waited, his thumb hovering over the next control. He heard the string quartet completely lose cohesion. Click. He slammed the main breaker relay. Instant, absolute darkness. The screams ratcheted up, transforming from irritation into sheer terror. The Vivaldi was replaced by the terrifying sound of crystal breaking and rich people falling over one another. Art triggered the molecular fog generator. The machine began pushing its dense, theatrical plume directly into the intake system, where the central HVAC would rapidly distribute it into the blacked-out penthouse. 20 seconds later, the most beautiful sound in the world. Whoosh. Art activated the sprinkler system override. The massive valve solenoid screamed in protest, and seconds later, he heard the unmistakable roar of hundreds of gallons of frigid water hammering down into penthouse 402. The panicked screams turned into shrieks of disbelief and outrage. He allowed himself a brief, quiet laugh, a sound swallowed by the mechanical noise of the utility room. Art, the man who was too old, too paranoid, and too much of a liability, had just simulated a Category 5 tropical storm inside a multi-million-dollar Aspen penthouse. He quickly disconnected the master board, snatched the now-running molecular fog generator, and slid it back into the specialty case. He relocked the utility door and took the service elevator down to the garage. The entire sequence, from the strobes to the flood, had taken less than 3 minutes. Back in the relative sanctuary of his F-150, he pulled up his laptop and accessed the security feed for the building's main exit. People were pouring out, men in drenched tuxedos, women in ruinously expensive gowns plastered to their skin, their elaborate hairstyles dissolving. Art zoomed in on the faces. Julian Sterling was incandescent with rage, his custom tuxedo clinging to him, hair dripping. He was shouting into a dead phone. Chloe Sterling was clinging to him, her emerald gown now several shades darker, streaks of mascara running down her pale, horrified face. She wasn't laughing or practicing an excuse for the caterers. This time, she was crying hysterically. Through the window, Art could hear Julian's voice, amplified by the cold night air. "You said you checked the system. This is all your fault, Chloe. This entire event was your idea to impress those fools." Chloe sobbed. "My idea? You wanted the network coverage. You wanted the sponsors. It's never about me. It's always about your brand." Art filmed the exchange, his camera phone steady proof evidence. And yes, entertainment. It was better than any scene he'd ever directed. The $127,000 reckoning begins. The chaos subsided. The guests, abandoned by their soaked hosts, dispersed into the Aspen night. Art drove the F-150 a mile away to a cheap, functional motel on the outskirts, a place Julian Sterling wouldn't use for his pool boy, much less his father-in-law. He sat on the single bed, the laptop open, the glow illuminating his grim expression. The theatrical part of the night was over. Now came the hard work. He accessed the Snowmass Creek residence management system via his custom backdoor, focusing again on the digital life of the Sterlings. He didn't need the security cams or the lighting logs anymore. He needed the receipts. Art opened the financial data he had quietly skimmed from the penthouse network during his brief initial hack. Julian's email and digital accounting files. He began scrolling, using his SFX coordinator's eye for detail, spotting discrepancies like flares in the dark. Then, he found it. A recent email chain marked urgent. Private. Subject, FW, last transfer done, gala deposit covered. Sender, Chloe Sterling. Recipient, Julian Sterling. Body, just finished the wire. Took the final $15. Zero this morning. Dad didn't even notice. The account flagged it as emergency home repair. Should cover the oral lighting and the venue deposit. Everything set for the gala. Art stopped breathing. Final $15,000. He searched for the phrase emergency home repair within the last year of his own banking statements, which he had stored digitally. He started a new, blank spreadsheet, logging the findings. The amounts weren't small. They weren't just covering the $12,000 lighting bill. They were financing a life. Date 03/15, $35,000, authorized as transmission replacement, F-150. Art's truck was perfectly fine. Date 07/22, $42,000, authorized as urgent roof replacement. Santa Fe residence. Art's roof was 5 years old and certified. Date 10/01, $15,000. Authorized as specialty medical consultation arthritis. Art had mild joint pain, not a $15,000 specialist. Date 11/18, $20. 0. Authorized as Julian Sterling portfolio investment. Directly from Art's savings to Julian's high-risk fund. Date 12/31 today, $15,000. Authorized as emergency home repair. For the gala lighting, he hit the AutoSum feature. The number that flashed back at him was ice cold and sharp, $127,000. $127,000, Art whispered, the amount feeling impossibly small compared to the scale of the betrayal, yet enormous compared to his trust. He closed the laptop, suddenly exhausted. He had confirmed the financial theft, which was worse than the social snub. The money was a symbol. The betrayal was real. He had wanted revenge for the door slam. Now he had the motive for a full-scale legal war. He opened his phone, typed Chloe Sterling, but stopped before sending anything. He didn't want to warn her. He needed to be silent, strategic, and lethal. Art Vance, the man who built believable illusions, was about to tear down their real one. Art Vance spent the next 48 hours in the quiet, questionable comfort of the motel room. Hunched over his laptop, the chaos he had unleashed on the penthouse was a distraction, a curtain raiser. The real plot was hidden in the 155 pages of his digitized bank statements, now spread across the motel desk, their official corporate headers mocking him with every page turn. He focused on the electronic authorizations. The pattern was undeniable: large, intermittent transfers, always flagged internally as necessary repairs or urgent family expenses. He identified the critical vulnerability. A single authorization document he remembered signing almost a year ago. It had been presented by Chloe during a brief visit, bundled with tax forms, titled innocuously as an asset management and emergency expense protocol. She had used the electronic signature pad on her tablet. At the time, he'd joked about not needing his reading glasses. Now, he felt the full sting of his misplaced trust. He called his former corporate counsel, Beulah Martinez, a sharp-witted attorney in Denver who specialized in complex financial litigation a world away. From Hollywood pyrotechnics, Art, you sound like you've rigged an entire studio lot to explode. Beulah's voice cut through the static on the cheap motel phone. Worse, my daughter and son-in-law stole $127,000 over a year, systematically. I have the bank statements and their internal emails confirming the transfers were for their gala. And Julian's portfolio. I need to prosecute. Beulah listened to the full, cold recounting of the financial theft, the party, and the theatrical. Revenge. When he finished, the line was silent. The party stunt was stupid, Art, legally. It helps their narrative of you being erratic or unstable, which Julian will absolutely use. But the money, that's wire fraud. Can we move fast? I want arrests, not mediation. Hold your horses. This is where the paper trail bites us. Did you sign anything granting them financial access or authority? Art swallowed, the shame bitter. A document she called an asset management protocol. I signed electronically. Beulah's response was immediate and grim. Art, I need you to find that document's digital footprint immediately. I'm almost certain that protocol was a sophisticated, limited power of attorney POA. If they had a valid POA, even one you didn't fully understand, they can argue every transfer was made in your best interest, for your health, for home maintenance, for future stability. It turns a straightforward theft case into a protracted, messy civil battle over intent and competence. It could take years. Years. Art stared at the spreadsheet, the numbers mocking his impotence. $127. 0 for a years-long court battle that would cost him another $50,000 in legal fees. That was the legal system rewarding the clever deceiver. There has to be a way to shortcut this, Art insisted. There isn't a shortcut for due process, Art, unless, Beulah paused, unless they got sloppy and exceeded the terms of that POA. Most of those agreements place a cap on individual transactions, usually between $20,000 and $25. 0. Art grabbed a red marker and savagely flipped through the printed statements on the desk. He found the 3 largest transfers he'd already identified. Transfer 03, 15, $35. 0 transmission replacement. Transfer 07, 22, $42,000 urgent roof replacement. Transfer 11/18, $20,000 Julian Sterling portfolio investment. He circled the first 2 transactions in an aggressive red ink that bled slightly through the paper. $35,000 and $42,000. Both were significantly over the theoretical $25,000 limit. I found it, Beulah. 2 transfers are well over $25,000. $35,000 and $42,000. They used them for roofs and transmissions. They got greedy. Bingo, Beulah sighed in relief. That's our legal lever. Exceeding the transactional limit immediately voids the POA for those specific actions and turns the entire pattern into a strong case for misuse of funds and fraud. It gives us leverage. The newfound legal advantage was a tactical victory, but Art was already thinking theatrically. He didn't want a quiet legal battle. He wanted a public, undeniable exposure that would hit Julian where it hurt his curated public image. Julian's entire business rested on his persona of financial success and integrity. Art retrieved his phone and made 2 key calls. The first was to Lemuel Lemcross, a former documentary director who specialized in exposing local political corruption and corporate fraud, known for his relentless, guerrilla filmmaking style. Art Vance, I need a documentary, fast and nasty. Art, you're retired. I thought you were playing golf. I took up a new hobby, exposing my son-in-law. He's a financial consultant stealing from my savings to fund his socialite lifestyle. I want a thriller, Lem, something that makes wire fraud look like a heist movie. I need you in Aspen by tomorrow. Family drama, Lem whistled. Those always get the most views. I'm packing my bags. The second call was to Srafina Vale, a highly influential and feared digital marketer whose personal blog, Vices of Vale, focused on tearing down the Fox wealthy of the Colorado elite. She had over 100,000 highly engaged followers. Art Vance, darling, you never call. Are you finally retiring for real? I need you to launch an attack campaign. I have the financial data on Julian Sterling debts, tax liens, and systematic fraud. I need maximum reach, maximum destruction. I want his bespoke luxury consulting brand to become a global joke. By the end of the week, oh Art, you know me too well. Public humiliation is my specialty. Give me the data. I'll launch the account Aspen Debts Exposed by midnight. We'll show the world the difference between a real bank account and an Instagram photo. With Beulah filing the initial legal challenges based on the over-limit transfers and his new team in place for the public exposure, Art felt the controlled rage begin to settle into focused strategy. Then, at 7 p.m., his phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Vance, this is Bradford Cole. I'm representing Julian and Chloe Sterling. The lawyer's voice was sharp, professional, and aggressive. My clients have informed me you engaged in severe vandalism and harassment on their property and have sent a threatening message regarding their finances. I'm calling to inform you that any further contact or attempts to defame my clients will be met with an immediate restraining order and a lawsuit for defamation of character. Defamation for what? Art retorted, his voice steady. For suggesting your client is a thief. I have the bank statements, Mr. Cole. Unless you cease and desist immediately, we will see you in court, where we will argue your recent behavior, the theatrical smoke, the water damage, the uninvited intrusion is clear evidence of age-related cognitive instability. We are prepared to file for emergency temporary conservatorship to protect their assets from your erratic behavior. The line went dead. Art stared at his phone. They weren't just defending. They were going on the offensive, flipping the script entirely. They were leveraging his staged special effects to declare him mentally incompetent and seize control of his assets, all to protect the money they had already stolen. Not so fast, Art murmured, looking at the spreadsheet. The 3 over limit transactions circled in red. They had played their hand, showing him they were terrified. Scared people make mistakes, and Arthur Vance, the architect of 1,000 cinematic disasters, knew exactly how to exploit a mistake. He had a new enemy, not just a thief, but a thief who was trying to erase his very competence. The legal threat of conservatorship, the declaration that Arthur Vance was mentally incompetent, had extinguished any lingering thoughts of a quiet resolution. Julian and Chloe had escalated the conflict from a personal betrayal to a high-stakes, existential threat. Art responded by launching the digital equivalent of a massive, multi-platform media offensive. He rendezvoused with Lemuel Lem Cross, the documentary filmmaker, and Serafina Vale, the digital strategist, at a secluded coffee shop in the nearby town of Basalt. Art presented them with the evidence, the red-circled bank transfers, the internal email confirming the theft, and the legal threat they were now facing. "They're trying to use my special effects stunt as proof of dementia," Art explained, a dry intensity in his voice. "They're trying to lock me out of my own life so they can keep the money. Our job isn't just to prove Julian's fraud. It's to prove my sanity by tearing down their facade so spectacularly that the court can't ignore it." Serafina, leaning forward with predatory enthusiasm, took the lead. Within 2 hours, she had created the anonymous social media persona, Aspen. That's exposed, a clean, professional-looking platform that mimicked the aesthetics of high-end financial news. The perfect Trojan horse. The first post was a split screen. On one side, a glamorous photo of Julian Sterling from his website, smiling and confident. On the other, a public record screenshot of an unpaid $380,000 tax lien filed against his consulting firm just 18 months prior. The caption was surgical: "When your bespoke luxury consultation comes with a tax lien larger than your client's net worth, luxury is a costume." Aspen exposed. The algorithm loved the high contrast of wealth versus reality. By the end of the first day, the account had over 89,000 followers. Serafina followed up relentlessly, posts detailing Julian's failed, unaccredited investment ventures, screenshots of the $12,000 gala catering invoice, the one Art had seen in the emails, marked as unpaid, and cryptic visual clues linking Julian's firm to questionable offshore registrations. The reaction was immediate and viciously effective. Art watched the live stream of comments and reposts. The most damaging posts were clips from the party chaos. He had filmed, now reposted and captioned, "Behind the scenes of Julian Sterling's failed empire, everything is a lie." Julian and Chloe's online world began to crumble in real time. Chloe's own Instagram, a carefully curated fantasy, was flooded with critical comments and lost followers at an alarming rate. Then, the true impact hit Julian's professional life. Art watched a video on Reddit that someone had recorded and posted. A heated phone call between Julian and a major client. Client's voice recorded: "Mr. Sterling, I'm calling about the information circulating online. The court judgments are public record, and I've verified the tax lien. I cannot trust a financial consultant who can't manage his own solvency." Julian's voice panicked: "This is defamation. It's an attack." "I can explain." Client's voice: "The explanation is irrelevant. We are terminating our contract effective immediately." Art smiled, a genuine, satisfying smile. The chaos he engineered was working. He had hit Julian where he lived his wallet, and his reputation. The digital counterattack celebration was short-lived. Julian Sterling was not just a liar. He was a resourceful manipulator. By sunrise the next day, Julian had launched his own, highly professional counter-narrative. It was a video posted across all of his remaining platforms, shot with high production values, directly into the camera. Julian, looking earnest and profoundly pained, began his performance. "This is difficult for me to say publicly, but I feel I have no choice. My father-in-law, Arthur Vance, is suffering from severe, age-related mental decline. We have watched him become paranoid, delusional, and convinced we are stealing from him." He detailed Art's recent actions with chilling precision. "He showed up uninvited to our private event, vandalized our home with smoke and water, and is now creating fake social media accounts to harass my clients and slander my business. We love him, but we are scared. If anyone knows Arthur, please help us get him the medical intervention he needs." The performance was stunningly convincing. Julian, The self-professed victim used genuine concern as a weapon. The comments poured in, twisting the knives deeper. Poor family. Dementia is so sad. Someone should do a wellness check on that old man. Elder abuse is real, even when it's directed at the elderly. The perception shift was immediate. Art's revenge had just been repurposed by Julian as proof of his own mental fragility. Art received urgent texts within minutes. Obi Art, saw the video. Don't respond. They're flipping the script. Beulah, we need to talk now. They just handed the court the exact evidence they needed for the conservatorship hearing. Art was staring at the screen. He, the master of illusion, had just been defeated by a better actor. He had provided the visual evidence, the chaos for their lie, the dementia. Claim they had successfully turned him into the villain. The crisis of conscience theft timing was impeccable. Minutes after Julian's video went viral, Art received the official electronic notification. The petition for emergency guardianship and conservatorship had been formally accepted by the court, and a hearing date was set for January 15th. In just 11 days, he was legally summoned to prove his own sanity. He called Beulah, his controlled composure finally cracking. They're trying to declare me incompetent. They're going to win because I staged a disaster. How do we fight this? Beulah's tone was all business. We fight it by proving your competence, Art. No more theatrical revenge. We need a full cognitive evaluation, character witnesses, and a documented, clear-headed exposure of why they're doing this. Your social media stunts are over. You are now strictly focused on the legal defense. Art hung up, a profound sense of isolation washing over him. He was losing his loyal daughter, Rowena, who still refused to answer his calls, and was now actively defending his legal freedom against the lies of his disloyal daughter, Chloe. He sat back and reread the conservatorship petition. It was legally dense, but the core message was clear. They intended to control his finances, his house, his medical care, and his future. They were trying to complete the theft with a judge's signature. He knew he couldn't stop. He had come too far, but he had to fight smarter. He had to stop being the stuntman and become the strategist. Art's thoughts settled back on his original legal leverage, the 3 transfers that exceeded the POA limit. He focused on the document that granted the POA itself. He needed to find the original digital file, the one that detailed the exact transactional limits they had exceeded. He searched through his old, fragmented files and finally located the digital receipt of the signing event. He found the attached document. He zoomed in on the fine print. Authorization clause states similar future transactions for household, medical, and emergency expenses not exceeding $25,000 per transaction. He grabbed his red-circled bank statements. Transfer 1, $35,000. Transfer 2, $42,000. They had broken the law on the transfers that funded their fake life. Art smiled, the cold, calculating smile of a man who just found the crucial flaw in the villain's master plan. He had 11 days to prove his sanity by exposing their crime. The staged disaster was over. The real show was about to begin. Art Vance walked into the Denver County Courthouse 11 days later, not as a panicked father, but as a seasoned director preparing for the most critical scene of his life. The hearing was for the petition for emergency guardianship and conservatorship of Arthur Vance. He carried 2 cases, one filled with legal documents, and the other, a small, black case containing the tools for his final, theatrical strike. Julian Sterling, pale but impeccably dressed in a new suit, sat with his aggressive attorney, Bradford Cole. Chloe sat beside them, her expression a mix of apprehension and exhaustion. The social media war had clearly taken a toll. The judge, Justice Vivian Thorne, an elderly woman known for her sharp legal mind, surveyed the room. We are here to assess the competence of Mr. Arthur Vance, as petitioned by Mr. and Mrs. Sterling. Mr. Cole, you may present your evidence of erratic behavior. Cole immediately launched his attack, detailing the Aspen chaos, the smoke, the water damage, the uninvited intrusion, all meticulously documented. Your Honor, this is the behavior of a man suffering from paranoia and delusion. We have grave concerns for his ability to manage his substantial assets. Beulah Martinez, Art's attorney. Interjected. We have submitted a cognitive evaluation showing Mr. Vance is fully competent. Our evidence will demonstrate that the petitioner's motive is not concern, but financial gain, resulting from a pattern of fraud. Justice Thorne turned to Art. Mr. Vance, you are here to defend your own capacity. You may address the court, but keep it brief. Art rose, carrying only the small black case. Your Honor, I spent 30 years in Hollywood creating illusions. Today, I'm here to show you the reality. I ask for 10 minutes to present a piece of evidence that explains my erratic behavior. Despite Cole's furious objection, Justice Thorne was intrigued. 10 minutes, Mr. Vance. Make it count. Art opened the case, retrieving a miniature projector and a high-fidelity speaker unit. He dimmed the lights a smooth, professional fade and began his presentation. It was the documentary Lem Cross had secretly been filming and editing, The Sterling Illusion. The film was devastating. It opened with the glamorous footage of the disastrous Aspen Gala, juxtaposed with the panicked, soaking faces of the guests. It then cut immediately to the bank statements, displayed clearly on the screen, with the $35, $0 and $42,000 transfers highlighted in blazing red. Next came the centerpiece, Lem's interview with a former associate of Julian Sterling, who revealed the existence of the offshore shell company and the large-scale investment fraud. The final, damning segment was an interview with an elderly former client of Julian's, tearfully describing losing her retirement savings, a direct link between Julian's luxury life and real-world victims. The film ended with a clear display of the power of attorney agreement, highlighting the $25,000 transaction limit, followed by the images of the two transfers that exceeded it. The cinematic proof was irrefutable. When the lights came up, the courtroom was silent. Julian was slumped in his seat, his polished facade shattered. Chloe avoided Art's eyes. Justice Thorne looked over the bench, her expression unreadable. Mr. Cole, does your client have any defense regarding the documented fraud and the clear violation of the transactional authority? Cole stammered, Your Honor, this is a civil hearing. The admissibility of criminal allegations. I have seen enough, Justice Thorne stated firmly. The petitioner's claim that Mr. Vance is suffering from paranoid delusions is thoroughly undermined by the fact that those delusions are verifiable instances of systematic fraud committed by the petitioners themselves. The guardianship petition is denied and dismissed with prejudice. The gavel struck, a sound of definitive finality. Mr. Vance is clearly of sound mind and is authorized to pursue all legal remedies against the petitioners. The unstaged confession in the hallway, a small crowd of local journalists and curious onlookers gathered as Julian was being led away by courthouse personnel, having been secretly served a federal warrant by the FBI based on Art's evidence. He erupted in a final act of desperate rage. You're a traitor. Chloe, after everything I gave you. Chloe, soaking in the public humiliation, finally stood up, not for Art, but for herself. Her voice was cold and clear. You gave me nothing but debt and lies, Julian. I'll tell the FBI everything. I won't go down for your fraud. Art watched the scene, the messy, unscripted reality that was more potent than any cinematic ending. Days later, Art learned Julian had been formally charged with wire fraud and grand larceny. Chloe, facing severe consequences for her complicity in the over-limit transfers and the tax fraud, immediately filed for divorce and agreed to cooperate with authorities, citing duress and full restitution, which she couldn't afford, but promised. 6 months later, spring had arrived in Santa Fe. Art had successfully recovered the $127,000, a hollow financial victory. The real fallout was the family. Rowena, his loyal daughter, finally visited, and they slowly began the process of rebuilding their relationship, acknowledging the deep hurt caused by the conflict. Then an envelope arrived. It wasn't from a lawyer. It was from Chloe. She requested a meeting, not in Aspen, but at a neutral coffee shop in Denver. Art agreed, wary but curious. Chloe looked completely different. Her high-end clothes were replaced with simple, practical attire. The performance was gone. She was teaching art at a local community center, a return to a passion she had abandoned. Years ago, she presented Art with a small, wrapped canvas. I lost everything, Dad, she admitted. Her voice flat. The condo, the sponsors, the friends, it was all a lie. I realized I was just another one of Julian's props. I knew I was stealing from you, and I let him justify it. I'm not a victim. I was a perpetrator. She unwrapped the canvas. It was a painting of the Aspen penthouse on the night of the chaos dark, streaked with water, illuminated only by the faint, eerie glow of the exit sign. She titled it, The Cost of the Illusion. I painted this as an apology, she said. Not for forgiveness, but for acknowledgement. I broke your trust, and I'm sorry I became the person who could do that. Art stared at the painting. He didn't hug her. He didn't forgive her. Forgiveness isn't a quick scene change, Chloe, Art said. His voice quiet. It's a demolition and a reconstruction. You tore down the entire set of our relationship. Rebuilding takes years. I'll take this painting. I'll remember the person who painted this, and I'll keep it as a sign of the effort you're making now. He stood to leave. He had won the legal battle, secured his assets, and achieved justice for himself and Julian's other victims. But the cost was the easy, unconditional love he had once held for his daughter Dot. As Art walked out, leaving Chloe alone at the table, he understood the true nature of his revenge. It wasn't the spectacular stunt, the court victory, or the money. It was the silence he left behind. The best revenge was forcing Chloe to finally see the truth and live with the realization of what she had willingly destroyed. The special effects were over. If you like history, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.